SpaceX has put the development of its Starship test vehicle ahead of its plans for floating launch pads. Welcome to the Tesla News Updates. SpaceX tested the Super Heavy Booster 7 with 31 Raptors engines running at the same time, conducting its largest test in history. These and more information you will find in today's video. If you love space news, make sure you like the video, subscribe for more SpaceX videos, and with no more excuses, let's dive into the video. Shortly after the start of the supply, the procedures were abruptly halted for no apparent reason, leading some to question whether or not a test would be possible that day. The fact that SpaceX President and COO Gwynne Shotwell said in an interview the day before at the FAA's Commercial Space Transportation Conference that tomorrow is a big day for SpaceX because they plan to try to power up all 33 Raptors from Super Heavy Booster 7 bolstered our confidence in the mission. And when Shotwell calls it a great day, it's safe to say it's one of the most significant in Elon Musk's company's more than 2 decades of existence, since they've never conducted a test as potent as this one. Despite how obvious it may seem, we will continue to stress the significance of the developments of recent years, as never before have humans possessed such potent space vehicles, with such a wide range of rockets and projects of varying conceptions. We noticed the Starbase highway was closed to traffic, and the pad was clearing out early that morning of February 9th. Simultaneously, coolers for oxygen and methane started their work to get the pad ready to receive the propellants and fuel the Super Heavy. After that, we waited a few hours for the start of operations, during which time we saw nothing of note, despite multiple ventilations in the ground tanks and on the pad. Because of its massive size and staggering specifications, the Starship stands out, but it is far from the only example of the increasingly heated nature of today's space race. Back at the test, we watched as the Super Heavy's tanks rapidly filled with liquid oxygen and methane. The lower portion was finished to support the upper tank, and the latter was placed primarily as a necessity for the burning that would follow. In addition, we witnessed SpaceX perform an extremely rare action by going live on its official channel and broadcasting the test in high definition, much to the delight of rocket scientists everywhere. Shortly after the tension reached its peak, the clock stopped for 40 seconds, counting down to the moment when the orbital pad's flames would be set free. After a countdown of just 14 seconds, the fire began. Unbelievable amounts of fire were visible, and a smoke wall rose higher than the 146-meter integration tower. According to SpaceX President and Chief Operating Officer Gwynne Shotwell, the company has decided to put its plans for floating Starship launch platforms on hold for the time being, so that it may concentrate entirely on accumulating flight experience with the next-generation rocket. 2 oil rigs were rumored to have left a Mississippi port on the 13th of February, according to a NASA forum user. Oil platforms named Deimos and Phobos after Mars's moons were once SpaceX's property. Near the middle of the year 2020, SpaceX paid only $7 million for what had once been oil rigs worth $500 million. Simultaneously, SpaceX CEO Elon Musk tweeted, "Developing floating Super Heavy class spaceports for Mars, Moon, and hypersonic travel around Earth." In January 2021, news of SpaceX's purchase of an oil rig leaked out. However, little has been done by the firm regarding Phobos or Deimos since then. Sporadic efforts to clean the deck on Phobos resulted in a partially cleared deck, whereas Deimos was largely unaffected. SpaceX's second-in-command has reportedly told Space News that the corporation has sold Phobos and Deimos and halted development of the Starship's offshore launch facilities. As of August 2021, Musk provided further clarification, saying that the platforms were not a top priority and that SpaceX had just hired outsiders to clear Phobos's deck. There is a chance that this whole endeavor was a waste of time. Shotwell told reporters in February 2023 that despite SpaceX selling the rigs, sea-based launch platforms would become an important asset in the future. Shotwell claimed that SpaceX planned Starship to be as much like aviation operations as we possibly can get, in the hopes of permitting dozens of launches a day, if not hundreds of launches a day. This is an ambitious goal, even by the standards of SpaceX's CEO, Elon Musk. Shotwell's Starship cadence objective is hundreds or perhaps thousands of times more ambitious than a rocket record from the 1980s that still stands today, having launched a total of 61 times in a single calendar year. But it's not clear if the FAA's strict environmental evaluations will ever let SpaceX go close to that kind of launch cadence using sites built in the United States. Long and hard, SpaceX fought for the right to launch up to 5 Starships into orbit each year from Texas's Boca Chica. In addition, NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida has given SpaceX permission to launch up to 24 Starships annually from Cape Canaveral. In addition, SpaceX may use its 2 current launch pads at Cape Canaveral to launch up to 70 of its much smaller Falcon rockets per year. 2 or 3 orders of magnitude above the maximum cadence the FAA has ever approved. Dozens to hundreds of Starship launches each day would be unheard of. Since floating platforms may be the only way SpaceX can actually achieve airline-like Starship operations while still coexisting with U.S. authorities, it is not unexpected that Shotwell has maintained his interest in them. According to Space News, SpaceX CEO Gwynne Shotwell was quoted as saying that the company truly has to fly to understand it, to get to know this machine, before determining how they will launch the spacecraft. This methodical attention to detail may very well be exactly what the Starship program needs. Even though SpaceX successfully stacked a 2-stage Starship rocket for the first time more than 18 months ago, the company has not yet attempted to launch the rocket into space. In spite of this, SpaceX has invested a significant amount of money and time in the construction, expansion, and optimization of factories, as well as launch facilities for Starship, an orbital rocket that has not even begun to partially demonstrate itself. To put it another way, SpaceX has placed massive bets on the idea that a version of Starship that is largely comparable to what the business is constructing right now will be enormously successful, reusable, and trustworthy. The fact that SpaceX has already been successful with the Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy, Dragon, and testing of its suborbital Starship shows that it will, in the end, be successful. Nevertheless, it is a pleasant change of pace that Shotwell seems to have the intention of doing orbital Starship launches and gathering data before making huge expenditures in new infrastructure and, ideally, significant design improvements and optimizations. In the late year 2022, Shotwell apparently took over responsibility for both Starbase and Starship. It's not hard to guess that it would take many days and a steady stream of trucks to transport enough fuel to launch a single Starship. One could wonder, how would fuel be transported to a sea-based platform? It's possible to regularly fill the platform with it using ships loaded with it. Alternatively, it can be transported via an underwater conduit or tunnel. A huge, sturdy ship that can refuel at multiple locations before setting out to launch several spacecraft and then returning to its home base would be ideal, easily more maneuverable than an oil rig. Once permissions are secured, SpaceX could simply lay tons of rock and construct the pipelines over the water, leading out to stationary platforms. Can bring in fuel through the pipe from a great distance. Thanks for watching the video until here. Do not forget to like the video, subscribe, and comment below.